3 and 4 and
King is worthy, is holy, is safe. A sin and dark, stronger, the King of glory. And leaves us where glory. This is amazing. That you would bear my crown. That you've done for me. Chaos, a son and daughter, all of us great. You lay down your life. Why we're saved. Oh, worthy is the King who was slain. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. You may be.
Amazing grace that is assured, but on the middle, into the service, if you can just drop it off at the welcome desk. So we've just got a few announcements that I want to draw to your. Got an opportunity for also in there in this year. So that is next this service. Up our game next weekend season, so there's nothing really important going wife after luncheon and training. If you're going to be serving in our children's, but that's today. They got a lot of great kitchen, door prizes, everything. So again, our church.
joy. If you think about what's going on as you grow as a believer. So continue to lift the church, and as a community, as the student pastor, a little bit of a little bit crazy as well. So we starting school, we're thinking of and up are already in the service. Second graders into the sanctuary. There you go. Good job. Good job. Okay. So there, yeah, give them a hand. Good job. A visual, who to pray for. Up to high school. Okay, now college. Okay, so stay up. All administrators. Take this time. Everybody now stand. So if you were feeling left out, and practice dresses. It goes this way. At that time, the disciples came to Jesus and calling to him, said, "Truly I say to you, kingdom of sin." It was on 19 verse 13. 19, Jesus' ministry, it says, "On them and pray." Jesus said, "Let the little kingdom of heaven." Significant, and how we need to have a similar faith. Greatest spot in the kingdom of heaven. And compassion. Starting school, continuing school, going back to school. They're difficult teachers from, but at the same time, there are some to new groups sent. Really view what our influence is in this community.
Amen.
2 and 3 and 4.
King, whether in life or my heart will ever, for the love of my King. It's so bright. My brow. I Lord of my heart, that best thought by day or Father, I will pray now and over. First, oh, heart vision, oh,
The special privilege of taking all of. Last week was a journey to get to talk about heaven. We really be 90 minutes in heaven with me, and then 40 later with your quiet. So it will feel like together in the Word. I hope that you will have and about it. Show what heaven is like. Can we know the similarity of all of them? Going to heaven and coming back, you exist. God has told us. This is Luke, heaven and hell. And he saw, maybe you're familiar with this account. And he in Hades begged this man go and tell my brother, my father's house, and warn across the chasm. They have the rich man. Someone came from after seeing it, experiencing it from heaven. If they do not hear, convinced if so passage actually exists, tell us that they are real. No. He said Moses and the prophets, that's a reference to after this. Build our end times eschatology from the Bible out there. So the subject this morning should cause you to think, use these phrases, eternal kingdom of the new heaven and the new earth, papers. So we're going to look, you're going to have the best picture, the best view of heaven than Lazarus coming back from John's words. There are really two different models, and I've given you a handout for. This is your kind of supplemental handout that is throw a side-by-side comparison where you will land. As we read through some of the characteristics or kind of ways of thinking of these two different models, you will line up. Vision model and the new creation model here, and also on as primarily and soul, body and spirit. It's talking about a whole nother dimension or realm. View of where this but the new creation model talks about human desires. The new creation model, however, are positive. In heaven, that is on the next slide. This idea of singing and contemplation. So probably thinking like, oh yeah, I've thought that's what heaven. But there will be work. You could say it this simply. This is really succinct. The new creation vision model is of heaven. And it does exist. I later in my life, and I was thankful that I came across this because with this spiritual vision model. It was kind of like the thinking that way below what life, very unfamiliar thoughts. I have wayward desires and sin. But then to what? To become it's going to dramatically impact your approach to a passage. Screen above, you're going to see that there's a number of reasons. It's the beginning of the church. Picks up our concept of heaven. Our spiritual vision model. In your spirit and given to you, Lord, and with those who have also died in the Lord. We mix up the way that the Bible talks about this this eternal state that believers this new creation model, and that's are bad. You know what a good they were finished creating all physical things in heaven. So somehow we've got into our physical things are bad. View them that way. God views and how it has affected. A little mixed up in the way that we approach the topic about the Bible. So I'm hoping this morning is like. I don't know if anybody, and it's actually very have landed and where the leaders of a first draft of this book, because to me free from these. After that, letter. He says, no, water, aquatic life. Look. So when he looks and he sees the first heaven, he sees a city. It's kind of like one of those first things you talk about there, what happens there, and that's what you're going to. New Jerusalem, a land. Milk comes from cow. Fertile land. And so our view of what is there, Garden of Eden. So there will be describe how it comes, including all those who have been saved and gone to new heaven, new earth. Well, we're going to here first. Members in your own, and they will be his people, and God himself will be with them on in the summer. So you're starting to see, so God, nothing separating. An argument with their spouse this week, lately, for you. Look at verse 4. Mourning, crying, more. New creation model talk. You're living fully the way God is intended, fully in God's. Behold, I am better. You think of another time where I was to die to make perfect, and there is Greek alphabet. And it's almost as if in verses 5 to 8, it's thinking about what to say. Hear Christ's heart of the water. What can I do to pay God back? What does it say? Pay your way. Do you look forward to what God has designed in your soul? Will give from the spring of the water of when you go to heaven. That is like a wave. It said, verse 7. Not just said, "Oh yeah, I'm thirsty for that." Stays in it. Son. About my son. He has in that lake that burns. Let's look at this vision. He says, of the 7 last plagues. So remember the bride imagery used in verse 2? He's talking about this cow. The lamb. So this is verses 9 to 11, the vision. And this is a very intimate relationship. Life or one flesh, you have none of God. So it contained a kind of clear as diamond, as Cliff's at. I'm no jeweler. I know you play, almost kind of like diamond here. Glory, having this, it's beautiful. As a huge, flawless diamond throughout the we're going to look at something else in the next few verses, the wall. Verses 12, folks, here. Okay, so a great high wall with tribes of the sons of Israel were inscribed. On the east, 3. You're looking at a literal, this nebulous, ethereal words, talking about, and you look at each one of them. Everybody who's passing through is going to think what? God is faithful to his people, because here we are now, not only above, at the gates and on the foundations. You see the 12 apostles of the church. So the names of those, I want to go these different. God is faithful to his people. All through those gates will be a reminder of the capital city. Again, literal terms, in terms that were fair. Its length is about the same as the same wide as the same deep as the human measurement. Why is he talking about human measurement if we don't have a new creation model, right? If you have a spiritual vision model, you have to look at this and go, I don't know why he's using human terms, because it's all just going to be floating and fun on our clouds, which is also an angel's measurement. So no matter what way you measure it, this is known about how big this is. The wall was built of jasper, while the city was pure gold, clear as glass. It talks about the foundations of the wall, adorned with jewels. Again, you see jasper, sapphire, agate, emerald, onyx. You see carnelian, chrysolite, beryl, topaz, Christophase, jacinth, amethyst. All these beautiful rocks and beautiful stones. And all of them kind of have like a different shade of color, don't they? And when light shines on them, oh man, you can just imagine how brilliant it is there. So the measurements of the capital city, if we were to take what he's measuring here and put it over the United States, and kind of just for a moment, kind of plunk it down, it would pretty much reach from Canada to the Gulf of Mexico, and it would reach from Colorado to the Atlantic Ocean. So, sorry, West Coast, you didn't get into it. So that's pretty big, isn't it? That's enormous. There's obviously going to be a lot of room, like Jesus said in John 14, 2-3, when he says, I go to prepare a place for you. He's building on as people are saved, and this is going to be a beautiful place to enter. It does not mean, like, I'm not a city boy, I'm a maybe somewhere else, some different real estate. Nations and kings, places. Where are they going to? New earth. I don't know how much bigger. It's so bright that the glory of God refracts such a bright new earth. Pearl gates, what he sees. And then finally, 22-27. Listen to this very carefully. To gives it light, and its light into it, and its gates, and the honor of the nations. But written in the Lamb's book. Capital city, positioned right in the middle. You think about that for a second and you go for it, because he's bright. Glory will be so much brighter. And by its light, by his light that he gives, When I order, this means new economy. What are they doing? They're says the glory, whatever they may be. In a time of uninhabited prosperity, their offerings will so you that are producing things, and they're bringing their best. See that nations are coming and guarantees an open door. Dangerous person. Through that, I couldn't come up with a C, so I apologize. Bright as crystal, flowing from the head of the river, the tree of life, healing of the nations. They will see his face, and his name will be on their foreheads. Light. And this is the kind of life, not death, not dying, not stopping, and never providing. Of God has almost like it's the Frio is pretty fun. See a river of water, and that tree of life was there. Similarities between any of them. You see rivers. Didn't rivers flow in the Garden of Eden? God and his let them what? Let them have dominion. He's showing that his revelation is beautiful. Blessing comes in. You see worship here. We need to look to his face, don't we? In practice, I have something dividing. Whatever you say, that thing that is in between you and God, how sour it was. Bitterness. And not starts to become so in treasuring your sin. Cherish him. You want eternity. And so if there's any spiritually, eternally, of your sin, it doesn't glory. You'll have very beginning. Let me end with this quote. He says this: when we open up or will we recognize it as home? Explore undiscovered new frontiers. A car, a new friend, the enjoyment of a new pet, staying in a nice new hotel room. Taste. We love newness. Attached, have new bodies. That's how we should understand the word of our familiar bodies. When I was preparing this, I read, but he said, beautiful. While listening. I'd like to have a foretaste of heaven. Watching the children play. You know, in those moments, we need to get the wrong view of how there are a lot of wondering people and directly, and we shouldn't worry about those things. Caught up, but that we would, if we could have, it would be worth it. That in this life we need to be happy from our sin. Forgive. Let us have a wonderful week.
To the sky.